Okay, hello, my friends. I have seven big stories for you tonight. I couldn't really narrow it down below that. And I'm warning you that if you watch this, you're going to be angry before you're done at least one of the stories, probably more than them. So I'm going to start here with yesterday where I left off. We were talking about North Korea and the probability that they're going to send soldiers from North Korea into Russia. I'm telling you that that's a probable thing, not that it's a done deal or anything, or I have some inside information or anything along those lines. One of my viewers said, yeah, they're probably not going to send soldiers, they'll send prisoners. I thought, you know what? Given what Russia has just done, I'm sure that Kim is looking at Putin's model of clearing his prisoners and would be thinking along those kind of lines. But if they're not sending prisoners, they're going to send factory workers. And if they're not going to send factory workers, they're going to use internal factory workers as slave laborers within North Korea. So in one way or another, Putin is going to reap the benefits of Kim's dominance of North Korea and slavery of his people in such a way that Kim is making money by supporting Russia. So that's just where they are. And yesterday we were talking about how North Korea was likely to deploy members of its regular armed forces in support of Russia. I still think that's a possibility, maybe even a probability. And what they hit today was a cache of North Korean munitions with the and Russian glide bombs when they hit that depot this morning, or I guess last night. That's what they actually hit. Okay, next big story. The Ramstein Format meeting on Ukraine was supposed to be held in Germany on October 12th. It's October 9th today. It's been postponed indefinitely, the new date of the meeting to be determined later because Biden cannot make the trip. And it was supposed to be a leaders meeting, a very high level meeting, and Biden needs to be there. Now, Biden is not going to be there because, well, Hurricane Milton is a huge thing. Right now, it is just landing over Florida, and this is the view of Hurricane Milton from the International Space Station. And this is, let me read a little bit about it. Milton is coming to Florida. The news broadcast modeled strength and estimated its consequences. Its strength exceeds Katrina in 2005, and that was a disastrous hurricane. Forecasters say the hurricane will be one of the strongest, if not the strongest, in history. And the Tampa area usually avoids hurricanes for whatever reason, just because of where it is, and it looks like it's about to directly hit Tampa. Katrina caused 1,836 deaths, 125 billion worth of damage. And so I'm going to play this because I just want you to watch what this forecaster is talking about of what it's like. There'll be these first initial storm surges up to 3 feet, and then there's going to be in other areas there's going to be this flooding that'll be up to 6 feet, and you'll see if you're in metric what 6 feet looks like. So it's going about over her head in some places. So that's a big thing. So is Biden right to be avoiding this meeting or staying put and not going to this meeting? I think the answer is yes. And this isn't even the angry part. I think he's right to be avoiding that kind of meeting. Like, this is what it looks like when it goes above 9 feet. Like, that's just to give you some perspective. I think he's right to avoid going right now because of this emergency situation where he needs to be dealing with that. Not because Ukraine's not important, because clearly it is. Now, I think he was dead wrong to skip out on the other meeting months ago where he was supposed to be at some significant conference and he skipped out to be at a fundraiser with I'm trying to remember, George Clooney, the actor. And it was actually at that fundraiser where Clooney and some others were like, he's not quite right. But he was wrong to have skipped out on that because that was a personal fundraiser for his campaign. They certainly could have shifted it around. We're talking about a hurricane that can be seen from space, from the International Space Station, looks like that. So he's right about that. Okay, big story number 2. Anton Gerashenko, back in 2015, Russia was already planning the annexation of a large part of Ukraine. I'm going to play this little video. Talks about both the territorial and cultural greatness of Russia. Now look at this map. Pay attention to the map, which allegedly depicts the vastness of Russia. Okay? Look at this part of Ukraine. Like, this is Crimea here, and it's part of Russia on the map. But not only Crimea, but the annexed peninsula are within the borders of Russian Federation. But what else is within the borders? On this map, Georgia is also part of the great and immense country, as well as a little slice of Belarus. and even Estonia. Now, there's a reason. Like, if you're up here in Estonia, you're thinking, yeah, now they're some of the most ardent supporters of Ukraine for a reason, because they get it. Lithuania is thinking the same way. Here's next big story. Lithuania has fortified another bridge over the river on the route from Kaliningrad. Fortifications, that's part of Russia, right? Fortifications are progressing as planned, with some bridges set to be demolished. They're actually going to blow bridges between Russia and Lithuania to prepare against the threat that Russia actually is. Fortifications will be supported by firepower in case it's needed to stop and destroy the enemy. Lithuanians are actually legitimately preparing for what Russia might do. So, tells you what they're thinking. Okay, this one will make you mad. This one will make you very mad. This is Scott Ritter. Scott Ritter said Zelensky killed him. Boris Johnson killed him. You killed him. What's he talking about? He's replying to this Euromaidan Press article where this little girl is singing. This girl is singing to her dad, who's in a casket at a funeral, and she's singing, "Daddy, Daddy, I want to hug you." The daughter of a fallen Ukrainian soldier sings for him for the last time. Russia killed him. And Scott Ritter's response was, Zelensky killed him, Boris Johnson killed him, you killed him. Now that's just evil. Just like, you can't have a heart for a girl crying over her dad in a casket. So this is a little bit more of an uplifting post. It says, I share with you the success of Bionic Prosthetics. It's terrible that this gentleman's arms have been blown off, but look at the success of these bionic arms. I mean, it's not perfect, but he can actually function in a reasonably meaningful way. I mean, this is pretty amazing. It's some incredible stuff. It's unfortunate that we have to be seeing this kind of technological breakthrough because of what's going on, but I'm glad to see that some things are actually working for him. Okay, now this is Arthur Rahe, and he's giving us a play-by-play of Bob Woodward's book, War. It's just about to come out. It's like pre-release, and he's just telling us what has been inside it. And it's talking about both what Trump's doing, what's Putin's done, and that sort of thing. The book reports that Mr. Trump, while still in office during the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, secretly sent Mr. Putin what were then rare Abbott point-of-care test machines for the Russians' personal use. Mr. Putin, who has been described as particularly anxious about getting infected at the time, told Mr. Trump not to publicly reveal the gesture because it could damage the American president politically. Quote, I don't want you to tell anybody because people will get mad at you, not me, Mr. Putin reportedly told him. Well, that's perhaps what they mean by having this great relationship with Mr. Putin. In the lead up to the invasion, the U.S. had obtained a treasure trove of intelligence. This is in 2021, in Biden's administration, which showed conclusively by October 2021 that Putin had plans to invade Ukraine with 175,000 troops. Biden confronted Putin with the intelligence twice in December of 2021. Now, I don't know that evidence was really conclusive like they think. Like, it was a buildup, but even top Russian commanders didn't know that they were for sure going to go in. Many were taken by surprise because it was held close to the chest. But we could see the buildup on the border, and so that's what they're talking about, I think. Okay, video conference, then what Woodward described as a hot 50-minute call that became so heated that at one point Putin raised the risk of nuclear war in a threatening way. Biden responded by reminding Putin it's impossible to win a nuclear war. Now, despite repeated warnings, Ukrainian President Zelensky dismissed the idea that Putin would actually invade, even after Vice President Kamala Harris told him in February 2022 meetings at the Munich Security Conference that an invasion was imminent. Okay, now let's talk about that one. So, again, Bob Woodward he's a fairly credible guy. He broke the Watergate story with Bernstein, and you got to give him credit for that. But he's also going to have perspective here. Now, there's more to the story here. Zelensky, behind the scenes, was both preparing and trying not to look like he was preparing so he wasn't panicking people at the same time. So there's more to this than just like, oh, he was just in denial, but that's what comes across here. So that's not entirely fair. One of the scenes in War reveals just how alarmed Biden and his national security team became over the prospect of Putin using nuclear weapons. By September 2022, US intelligence reports revealed a deeply unnerving assessment of Putin, that he was so desperate about battlefield losses that he might use tactical nuclear weapons in Ukraine. Based on the alarming new intelligence reports, the White House believed that there was a 50% chance Russia would use tactical nuclear weapons. Now, this explains why Biden is continuing to be overly cautious, because Biden's a little wigged out that Putin might actually use nuclear weapons. And so he's not allowing these missiles because he's like, oh, I mean, we're really close to the brink. Okay. Quote, on all channels, get online with the Russians. Biden instructed his national security advisor, Jake Sullivan, tell them what we will do in response, he said. Okay, so that's a good move, and I give Biden credit for that. Now, I am going to discount what he's doing right now and say this is terrible, all this slow walking, but I give him credit for telling him very clearly that is not going to stand. If you do that thing, this bad stuff is going to happen to you. You've got to communicate. Now, according to the book, Mr. Putin had ordered the Russians to intervene in 2016 election to help Mr. Trump beat Hillary Clinton. Mr. Trump rejects that view. He suggests that he believes Mr. Putin's denial of that charge. The Mueller report did not find criminal conspiracy that could be proven in court, but he documented an unusual number of contacts between Russia and people in Mr. Trump's circle during the campaign. Again, the Mueller report said, we think there's something here, we can't prove it. And that's what essentially came out of that. Senator Lindsey Graham is quoted as saying, going to Mar-a-Lago is a little bit like going to North Korea. Everybody stands up and claps every time Mr. Trump comes in. Now, in the aftermath of the October 7, 2023 attacks in Israel, Woodward describes the roller coaster relationship between Biden and Netanyahu. While Biden supported Israel publicly, he fought with Netanyahu behind the scenes. What's your strategy, man? Biden asked Netanyahu in an April phone call. We have to go to Rafah, Netanyahu said. Bibi, you've got no strategy. Biden responded. That same month, Israel launched a strike in Syria that killed a top general in the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. But Biden's frustration with Netanyahu boiled over as the war continued to escalate. Bibi, what the blank? Biden yelled at Netanyahu in July after an Israeli airstrike killed a top Hezbollah commander. You know, the perception of Israel around the world is increasingly that you guys are a rogue state, a rogue actor, Biden said to Netanyahu. Netanyahu responded that the target was one of the leading T. We saw an opportunity and took it, Netanyahu said. The harder you hit, the more successful you're going to be in the negotiation. Okay, so that's not the whole story. This is Darth Putin, the parody website, saying, my trolls think that because Trump let me keep what Obama handed over, it means he was tough on Putin. This, days after Trump was inaugurated. So, look at the date, Tuesday, 14 February 2017, very early in the Trump administration. Violence flares in war-weary Ukraine as U.S. dithers and Russia pounces. So, Trump really didn't do anything. Now, he didn't start the war, he didn't let the war begin, but he didn't do anything either. So, you got to call a spade a spade. It's fair that he didn't really do anything. But neither did Biden. This is Jason J. Smart talking about the same thing. This is the book, the Bob Woodward book. They bleeped up in 2014. That's why we are here. We blanked it up. Barack never took Putin seriously, said President Joe Biden. Obama's weakness in response to Russia's 2014 seizure of Crimea encouraged Putin, paved the way for a 2022 invasion, says Bob Woodward. So Barack's guilty. Trump's guilty. Biden didn't stop it. And if you go back, George W. Bush didn't really do anything in 2004 with Georgia either. So nobody's clean. Anyway, okay, I told you you'd be mad by the end of this. Last little bit from Darth Putin. What's cool about this is that everyone but the guy who invaded is a warmonger. Now, what's he talking about? In this post, Chris Perry says, your leader is a puppet for warmongering scum, just like my leader. Interesting that our leaders don't have to fight. That's all I expect. Well, here's the military-industrial complex, and here's the puppet. They're all warmongers. Wait a minute. Who's the warmonger? What about the guy that actually invaded? Huh. All right, my friends. That's all that I have. That's all my blood pressure can stand today. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the likes, the shares, the subscribes, and thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.